A major part of doing well when you are in your creating texts unit is being able to work with the stimulus material to write a really purposeful piece that explores a range of ideas through your writing. Today's video is about looking at the 2024 exam for Section B and looking at how that stimulus material could help you in creating a really fantastic piece. You'll notice that I'm using language like help, assist, inspire, stimulate, and I'll be saying those things throughout the video because I want your attitude to be one where you bring all of your knowledge about writing about personal journeys, all of the ideas that you've got from mentor texts and discussions with your teacher and your class and activities that you've done. And I want you to bring all of those things to the stimulus material and have that light the fire for the piece that you eventually put together. That means that we find a really good balance between having prepared and thought about ways of writing, structures, deliberate decisions, ideas we like to explore, but not coming in with a piece where it's, I'm going to write this particular piece no matter what the stimulus says. We want to bring all of those things in, have a look at the stimulus material and say, yes, I can latch onto that and I can use that and put all that together for a really fantastic piece. Let's take a look at the stimulus material from the 2024 exam, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. And the first thing that you would see if you look up the 2024 exam is that the title for personal journeys was Finding My Way. Now, what's really important with this is that we don't just dismiss this as a simple generic title. Oh, okay, yeah, well, I've been talking about personal journeys all this time. Yeah, simple. I'll just write a piece about someone who finds their way. Yep, no worries. This is a very particular choice of words with finding my way. It's not finding a way or finding the way, it's finding my way. This idea of it being a personal journey, but also the idea that someone has to find their way. It has to be something that is very personal to them, something that they go through and that they understand. What we know from the stimulus material and the instructions on the exam is that the title must be used. And that doesn't just mean write it at the top of the page and then just write whatever and hope that it all comes in. You should treat the title in the same way that you treat an essay question for Section A of the exam. It is there to guide the overall direction of your piece. It must have a tremendous impact on everything that you then write. So keep that in mind and practice working with as many different titles as you can. What that means is that you'll be preparing yourself to be able to bring all sorts of different ideas and structures and deliberate decisions, but you'll be able to use them within any title that's given to you. You'll be able to have that title embellish them and make those ideas even better because you've got this strong sense of purpose. And so with all of that in mind, consider the type of piece that you could write that would really help you examine that idea of someone finding their particular way, and about that being a journey that is obviously very unique to just them. What that means is that will guide all of those other decisions in the way that you go ahead and write your piece. And so you need to be open to being able to adapt on the day when you see your stimulus material and have things where you think, okay, because the title is that, I'm going to write this particular piece from this particular viewpoint with these particular ideas. That's why you need to have built so many different ideas so that you've got many to choose from when it comes to taking a look at the title. We then have 3 pieces of stimulus material, one shorter written, one visual, and one larger written, more lyrical sort of poetic stimulus there at the end. What's important when you consider all 3 of these stimulus materials is that you are instructed to use at least one. Now, that means that there is no special trick here with, oh yeah, but if you write using all 3, that's better than just using one. There is nothing here about the quantity of how many or how much of the stimulus material you use. Rather, you should be using it as it is intended, as stimulus for your own existing ideas. What that means is that you need to walk a really fine line between being incredibly obvious with the fact of saying, hey, this is where I talked about the stimulus material. I've just talked about exactly what the quote says or exactly what the image says. I've just described it. But also at the same time, you can't be, so far off base with these things that you don't actually refer to at least one part of it. So my advice there for you is to use which part works for you. What stands out to you the most? And sometimes that will be more than one element of the stimulus material. Sometimes it will be multiple things that stand out, and that's great. Just don't get bogged down with thinking that the more that I can overtly show that I've used this stimulus material, the better I'll go. That's not how it works. It's there to help, not as a way for an assessor or your teacher to look at it and think, ooh, okay, yeah, how much of it have they done? Oh, they've used 3, 4, 5 things I can see from the stimulus material. Again, practice is always what's most important here. If we take a look at the first stimulus from the 2024 exam for personal journeys, short sentence that we have here, well, not even a full sentence, but it's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person then. So you don't have to use the exact same words. In fact, in a lot of times, if you're just repeating the words from the stimulus, it's a little bit like overly repeating the words from a Section A question over and over again in your essay. You're going to overdo it and you're not going to, spread out and go further. This has the potential to be seen in a deeper manner than what we may first think. And that's the habit that you should be in. That's the strategy that you should use. What deeper things is this actually representative of? Because it's quite a simple idea to say, okay, yesterday I was a different person, today I'm different again, and tomorrow I'll be different again. Where can we go with that? Thinking about growth, thinking about people being unrecognizable to themselves, thinking about how people can evolve and change, and being able to think about the factors that lead to that. All of that would be applicable here with this written stimulus, and that's what it's there for you to think about. Even though it doesn't explicitly mention tomorrow, the fact that it talks about no point going back to yesterday, well, it's implied, isn't it, that this is an idea of what's the difference between yesterday and today, so therefore we can talk about the future as well. If we then take a look at the second stimulus material, we have the visual. Now, the visual is obviously going to be the one that always sticks out the most. If you're anything like me, it's probably the first thing that you see. That doesn't mean that it must be used or that it should be used over the other two, but with the visual, you are there to be able to, again, take it deeper. Think about what it's really saying to you. In this case, we have the 2 feet at the bottom of the picture. You might take this visual and completely disregard the arrows and the directions that they're going in. This might be about you looking at a piece and saying, wow, okay, I'm at the very start of my journey. The way that I looked at this in a practice piece that I've written that you'll be able to access as well, I talked about being on the edge of beginning my journey, on the edge, because that's what I thought when I saw those 2, shoes at the bottom of the picture. That's fine. That's stimulus. That's coming up with ideas. Of course, then there are the arrows and all the different directions. You could think about the idea that this person is looking down and that maybe they need to look up and get their head out of all of the options that are confusing them and actually just focus on the path that's ahead of them. All of these things could come from it. Again, practicing with using as many different visual aids as you can to stimulate ideas is what's going to help you. You'll notice that I haven't just said, oh, this is exactly what the picture means, or this is what the first written stimulus means, and you can either get it wrong or right. It is most definitely a case of there being no right or wrong answers. Rather, it's about you being able to come up with ideas that are going to help you put forward a really purposeful piece of writing. And finally, we have the third stimulus, which is a little longer, a little more lyrical or poetic. Okay, the caterpillar transforms without thought. Its journey to a beautiful butterfly inevitable. Why must my own metamorphosis be shaped by so many choices? I really like this one for writing about personal journeys because it lends into all the other stimulus material so well. That idea of finding my way. If we look at other creatures, now we can think metaphorically here. We don't have to think about, oh, I have to write about caterpillars and butterflies. But if we think about other people, sometimes it can seem this idea of inevitable. Sometimes it can be easy to look at someone else's journey and say, well, everything was easy for them. They knew what they wanted to do. They had this inevitability about their life, this instinct that they followed. And I feel perhaps a little insecure that I didn't have that. Why must my own metamorphosis be shaped by so many choices? Well, that really brings in this idea that perhaps having lots of choices or having the world at your feet can actually be daunting. It's not just an optimistic, beautiful thing of, oh, there were so many opportunities for me. It was, I'm overwhelmed by these things. I have so many choices. How is it that I'm meant to find my purpose or my way? So you can see how we can bring these things in together. So that brings up the final strategy that I wanted to discuss with you, and that is you're not there to be able to make perfect links between all of these stimulus material. I think if you're trying to do that, you're trying to be a little too tricky and make this task something that it's not. However, if you do find links like that, what you'll find at the base of them is that that's going to be a really fantastic idea for you to write about. That in talking about finding my way, you can talk about the inevitability of things, or perhaps the lack of a feeling of inevitability, and how that means that there's so many choices that you're overwhelmed and you're overcome. So when you start to make those links, what lies at the base of them is going to be what's really, really helpful to you in examining some deeper ideas. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you've got a lot from it. Please make sure that you check out our next video here on the YouTube channel, which is how to use this stimulus material. And I've written 2 sample pieces, and you can take a look at that and get an idea of what it means to turn this into writing. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, ask lots of questions there in the comments. And if you found this helpful, you can join The Lab, which is our online platform, which hosts a whole bunch of other video content and written content for all areas of VCE English. All the best with your studies.